Women are recording themselves on social media taking Tylenol while pregnant, simply in retaliation to the words of President Donald Trump and RFK Jr. You and I need to talk about this. I'm Marcus Peter. Let's take a moment to marvel at this, the latest entry in the canon of continued political absurdity. Liberal and progressivist women are now recording themselves swallowing Tylenol while pregnant in an effort to, I guess you could call it, to stick it to RFK Jr. and Donald Trump.
28 weeks pregnant. You know what I'm going to take? Some Tylenol, acetaminophen. It's going to work like a charm, and my baby won't have autism.
And the logic, the problem is, if we can call it logic, is painfully transparent.
Tylenol during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good.
If Trump or anyone associated with him suggests caution, then the enlightened course of action must be the exact opposite. Filmed, hashtagged, posted to social media. This isn't science. And it's not even a healthy exercise of medicine. It's not even protest in any serious sense. I think it's performance retaliation, but with potential collateral damage, namely the mother and the unborn child. Now, in fairness, I want to make this clear. Skepticism of politicians is healthy. I am perfectly fine presuming that most politicians don't know much about anything, let alone medicine. And that goes for Trump and RFK Jr. and the entire congressional roster. But a functioning adult, especially one carrying another human being, a human life, might pause before shoving pharmaceuticals into their body out of spite. After all, there's actual evidence. Now, I'm going to acknowledge this. It's messy, it's debated, but it's mounting evidence that acetaminophen during pregnancy may carry risks.
Acetaminophen is the most commonly used medication for pain and fever during pregnancy. Well, now we're learning that women who take it when pregnant may be exposing their baby to an increased risk of behavioral problems and other disorders, such as Tourette's syndrome.
A new study from Johns Hopkins finds taking acetaminophen late in pregnancy is associated with a higher risk of having a child with autism or ADHD.
New research out of Spain is raising concerns about prenatal exposure to acetaminophen. A popular brand in the United States is, of course, Tylenol. A study from Spain included data from over 70,000 children. It shows those whose mothers took acetaminophen during pregnancy were about 20% more likely to develop ADHD or autism symptoms.
Now, none of this is fringe speculation. It's mainstream medical concern. Even the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has noticed. On September 22nd, 2025, the FDA announced that it was considering label changes for acetaminophen after acknowledging a considerable body of evidence, this is their own words, linking prenatal use to possible neurodevelopmental issues like autism and ADHD. Now, like I said, it's concerning, and they're not claiming, therefore, there's direct causation, but they want to be careful. So no, this is not the White House press office. This is the nation's primary drug regulator, and they're admitting that at minimum, the science warrants scrutiny. The FDA's language was careful. They admitted the data is conflicting. But the fact remains, enough evidence exists that the government is signaling caution. It's not new either. In 2017, Tylenol's own corporate social media account replied to a consumer with the following line: "We actually don't recommend using any of our products while pregnant. Thank you for taking the time to voice your concerns today." The company was later massaged the message, but the impulse was clear. Even the manufacturer was hedging. But here we are in 2025. Influencers declaring their pharmaceutical consumption on TikTok like it's a gender reveal and like it's a legitimate protest. The intellectual incoherence of this nonsense should be obvious. If Trump says don't jump off a cliff, well, you and I shouldn't sprint for the nearest ravine to prove our independence. Chesterton once remarked, "Don't ever take a fence down until you know the reason it was put up." The fence here is prudence in maternal fetal medicine. You don't knock it over because you dislike the handyman who pointed it out. At the very least, you might ask, might there be some truth to this caution? Because at this point, this is ridiculous. Before uploading a reel of your rebellion, ask yourself, might there be some truth or caution at least? Because this is less about Tylenol and more about our cultural pathology. We live in an area where the reflex to oppose has replaced the instinct to reason. Public discourse is no longer about weighing evidence or exercising judgment. It's about signaling tribal loyalty through exaggerated acts of defiance. The unborn child, of course, has no say in whether mom wants to score points against Trump on Instagram. The unborn child doesn't benefit from your likes, your shares, or smug captions. What that child does receive is whatever chemical exposure comes from the latest performative stunt. So let's end with a sober reminder, especially for Christians. The Apostle Paul warned the Corinthians, all things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. It's 1 Corinthians 10:23. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that it's necessarily good or the prudent thing to do or even the loving thing to do. Augustine cautioned us centuries ago. The good Christian should be watchful. The truth can be assaulted by error, not only in falsehood, but even in foolishness. The Christian calling here is to exercise prudence. This is an old-fashioned word, but it means thoughtful judgment. Because prudence asks, does this act serve the good? Does it protect life? Does it exercise caution? Does it honor God's gift of reason? And if it doesn't, well, maybe don't record yourself doing it for social media clicks, because filming yourself gulping Tylenol while pregnant may feel like resistance against Trump, but it is folly. A culture that mocks caution in the name of politics is not enlightened. It is childish. And in this case, tragically, it might risk harming children. True freedom, true dignity, true resistance lie in living wisely and proclaiming the truth boldly and seeking out that truth so that we can inform others and share ideas properly, not recklessly. If we wish to rebuild a sane society, it must begin with parents who act with love and prudence, and in short, who act like parents, like adults, not with belligerent, defiant children who act for clicks. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Marcus Peter.